Alright everyone, now let's move into tonight's generations reflecting on lifestyles. And tonight's video touches on something that honestly becomes more important the older people get. But maybe younger generations should begin thinking about much earlier too. So today we have a video by the channel John Griffin 2.0 with a video called Life 2.0 Maximize Your Second Life. For the European folks would be 2.0, also known as 2.0, but originally Life 2.0 Maximize Your Second Life. And because this video is really asking a profound question, that is, what happens after people achieve the life they thought they were supposed to want? You know, the stable career, the house, the routine, the ones who are older enough, retirement, and then suddenly realizing, wait, what now? And I think modern society often prepares people to work, but not necessarily to live meaningfully. So let's hear the beginning of his video. You can go and check out John Griffin Live 2.0 channel. And if you want to subscribe or watch the video in full, let's hear the beginning and I'll come back with a reaction.
If you're on the second half of your life, what I like to call Life 2.0, that's mostly if you're over age 40, but closer you get to 50, the more Life 2.0 you are, you've probably had more than a few passing thoughts about when this whole journey is going to end and what you're going to do with the time that you have left. And today I want to talk about how those two concepts are very closely linked to one another. How the amount of time that you have left may very well be dependent on how you choose to use that time.
So one of the central ideas in this video is the criticism of the traditional idea of retirement. The idea that the ultimate goal of life is work hard, retire, sit down, and permanently disconnect from responsibility and purpose. John Griffin here tells a very powerful story about his grandfather, a hard-working man who remained active and strong for years until retirement suddenly removed his structure, his contribution to society, his purpose. And then his health collapsed surprisingly fast. Maybe you know lots of stories like that, or maybe close in your family as well. And I think many people have seen versions of that happening in real life, right? People who psychologically deteriorate not simply because of age, but because they slowly lose meaning and direction and the feeling that they still matter to others. So this connects with something very interesting when comparing modern life with parts of the 80s and 90s. Because back then, many people still had stronger local roles inside families, neighborhoods, communities, churches, clubs, or long term workplaces. Even if life had many problems, people often remained socially needed for longer. A retired man might still help his neighbors, mentor younger workers, fix things, participate in community events or family events, or remained integrated into daily life. And modern society sometimes feels much more fragmented socially. People retire and then suddenly disappear into isolation. And digital entertainment sometimes worsens this because people can now spend entire years consuming content passively without truly participating in life. So I think one of the strongest idea in this video by John Griffin is that human beings psychologically need participation, not constant stress, not constant burnout, but participation. The feeling that your presence matters, that your actions matter, that your contribution, regardless is small, medium, or large, matters. And that doesn't necessarily mean a huge career in whichever field, or massive status, or becoming famous. Sometimes purpose is much smaller and more human. That is helping someone, teaching something, creating music, growing food, caring for family, building community, and sharing your experience. And many people today are starving for exactly that type of meaning. Now, another idea from the video that I really liked is the idea that success is not a final destination. And modern culture constantly sells people this fantasy that once I achieve this thing, then I will finally feel complete, right? This kind of equation. When you find the job, the money, the house, retirement, the relationship, the status. But life rarely works that way. I think we all participating in this show can tell, right? Because psychologically, human beings adapt very quickly. And if somebody's entire emotional structure depends on arriving at one final destination, they often feel surprisingly empty once they get there. And this is where things become very interesting historically, because during parts of the 80s and 90s, many people still believed more strongly in this kind of linear life progression. You study, you get a job, you build stability, and retire later. And for many people, that structure genuinely worked better back then economically. Housing was more accessible, communities were often more stable, careers lasted longer, and society still moved slower psychologically. But today, younger generations increasingly feel that the old roadmap no longer fully works the same way. And that uncertainty creates anxiety. People feel economically unstable, feel socially disconnected, and emotionally overwhelmed by constant change. But modern life also created new possibilities, right? Weighing both times, trying to see something good in the present. Today, at least today, people can reinvent themselves more than before, at least having the chance. You can start creative projects later in life, not attached to certain age. You can learn things online, you can build communities globally, you can change careers, you can work remotely, or create meaningful work outside traditional structures. And that flexibility can become something beautiful if people use it intentionally. Now, another part of the video that I found very interesting, or more than interesting, important, is the discussion about forgiveness. Because many people enter the second half of life carrying enormous emotional weight, with resentment, regret, betrayal, divorce, lost opportunities, or family conflicts of any kind. And psychologically, those unresolved emotional loops consume tremendous energy. Forgiveness does not necessarily mean approving what happened or trusting everybody again right away or pretending pain didn't exist. Sometimes forgiveness simply means not allowing old pain to permanently control your nervous system anymore. And that may become increasingly important with age. Now, uh, one of the best concepts, from my point of view, from the video by John Griffin, is what he calls the vitality feedback loop. The idea that when people contribute positively to others, they receive emotional energy back. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. Human beings often become psychologically healthier when they feel useful beyond themselves. And this doesn't only apply to older people, it applies to everyone. Modern culture increasingly pushes self-optimization, this constant self-image, self-improvement, self-branding, even this trend of become your best version, but every week. But psychologically, people often feel better when life becomes slightly less self-centered. And this may also explain why music remains so emotionally important across decades. Because songs often reconnect people with meaning, with identity, with memories, positive memories, and emotional continuity. A song can instantly remind someone who they were, what they survived, what they still care about, or what parts of themselves they don't want to lose. So now let me ask you, what gives you the strongest sense of purpose of or meaning in daily life right now? Sometimes the answer is much simpler than people expect. It doesn't have to necessarily be something big. Let me know in the comments. And maybe that's one of the most important ideas from this whole video, that life doesn't necessarily become meaningful automatically through comfort alone. As human beings, still need movement, purpose, connection, contribution to the community and society we all belong to. And we all need emotional participation in life. And perhaps the real challenge of modern life is not simply living longer, but remaining emotionally alive while doing it. Alright, everyone, that was tonight's segment, Generations Reflecting on Lifestyles.